I'm Anne Tucker, Head of Research at Mediatel, which is part of Adwanted Group. And this is Jason Brownlee lurking in the sidelines, founder of Colourtext. And we're going to be giving you some insights today on the audio market using data from our Audiotrack product. Now, many of you in the room will already know about Audiotrack, but for those who don't, it's an audio distribution service which delivers UK audio adverts from creative agencies direct to the respective audio platform for play out. It already delivers to all UK and Republic of Ireland linear radio stations, as well as community radio stations, DAB stations, digital streaming and podcast platforms, so it covers everyone. And therefore, in the back end of this trusted industry tool is an exceptional data set covering 2/3 of all audio advertising and fully representative of the full UK audio market. And Jason has taken this never-before-seen data set and analysed it to discover new insights into the quality and effectiveness of audio advertising. He's crunched the numbers for over 10,000 campaigns broadcast between 2019 and 2021, which included activity for 615 national brands across 22 advertiser categories, using over 13,000 pieces of audio ad copy, so kind of big. Uniquely, Audiotrack has also text transcribed approximately 70% of these advertisements, which has yielded new campaign data points that have proved to be incredibly useful. So I've got the rather easy bit today to give a bit of an introduction to what we're exploring. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jason, who can take you through the findings to date.
Thank you, Anne. Can you all hear me? Yes, you can now. Excellent. So, it isn't often you get to play with a data set as big as this that no one has ever really looked at before. So it's really good fun if you like that kind of thing. So what's in it? Let's start with the easy stuff to begin with. I think it's fair to say that audio is pretty sexy at the moment. A lot of us in this room have thought it probably always has been, but I think a lot more people are catching up with us. The top 5 categories on audio by brand count are what you can see here. And we can see this activity developing over time, year on year, which is nice. And other things we can do, we can check out who the always-on brands are. I like looking at these because they are a natural kind of affirmation that audio works. These guys wouldn't be on every day of the year for the last 3 years if audio wasn't delivering for them. Now, if audio is hot, I would say podcasts are getting even hotter. The level of adoption of podcasting that we're seeing in the data set is going off the scale. You can see retail particularly has driven up from 38% of brands including podcasts on their audio schedules up to 58%. And it's a good growth story elsewhere as well. Even travel that was hammered during COVID is really ramping up their use of this medium. And on average, what we've found is within the top 5 categories, brands are using podcasts for 97% of their active audio days, which is just another way of saying that when they're on audio, they're also on podcasts. So it's definitely established itself as a steady kind of element within the audio schedule. Now, Anne mentioned that we've got something new in the Audiotrack database, which is 13,000 individual ads that have all been automated and automatically transcribed, which means we've got the copy for them. We can read what brands say about themselves on audio. Now, I've never been able to play with that kind of data before in audio. We do a lot of what's called quantitative semiotics, so applying it to audio is quite exciting. And it can tell us a lot of stuff, and the story I'm going to take you through now is something that we never expected to see. So let's go through the easy stuff first. We can find out things like the number of brand mentions that brands use in their campaigns, in their spots. Now, I don't know yet what the optimum kind of number of brand mentions ought to be. What I can tell you at the moment is that the average is about 2. There's a little bit of variation between product categories, but not a huge amount. We can also tell you at what point in a spot that brands will first mention their names. And again, not a huge amount of variation, but on average, you get about 37% of the way into a commercial before a brand first mentions its name. And those two didn't give us all of the data we were looking for just yet to take that analysis further to tell us what the optimum number of brand mentions or position in ad ought to be. But we did get much stronger signals from this third chart, which we're going to go through in more detail. This is about word count and the number of words per minute that we find in audio commercials. Now, there is a lot more variation here between product categories. It goes all the way from, say, about 155 words per minute, and if we're talking about a 30-second ad, obviously half that number. For food and drink, all the way up to about 180 for finance. So there's a lot of variation. And we were able to go into much more detail. And the question that this kind of raised in our minds when we were looking at this data is, what impact does word count have on the effectiveness of audio campaigns? Is that an interesting question? Because it was certainly one we felt we could probably answer with the data available. So let's take a look, shall we? Now, you'd be surprised to find there isn't a lot of research on this apparently very simple question. I mean, if you go on the internet, you'll find lots of advice about how many words per minute you should have in a good best man speech for a wedding, the kind of word rate you can expect in a tolerable conversation, starting at 150 words per minute there. But I mean, it can go all the way up to 400 words a minute for like fast talkers, like football commentators. So there's a lot of variation. Now, around Christmas time, when we were doing this research, for shits and giggles, I decided to count the number of words in some of my favourite Christmas songs, and this was interesting. You should come around my house and hang out sometime. For instance, Let It Snow by Dean Martin, 86 words per minute. I mean, that's right at one end of that chart that I just showed you. It's way off the scale, low. All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah, 75 words a minute, so we're going down. And like another one, I did 10 of these, I'm going to bore you with all of them. Paul McCartney, Wonderful Christmas Time, only 51 words per minute. The slowest in terms of word count was Aled Jones with, what's it called, that song now? Anyone remember? Walking in the Air, thank you. 40 words per minute. So, huge amount of variation. I mean, what are we supposed to do if we're making audio ads? Well, this is where the big audio data mine and Radio Centre kind of comes to the rescue, because they've been doing something called Radio Gauge now for 14 years. And last year with Mark Barr, the planning director, who sat around here somewhere, and I managed to bring together all of that data into a meta-analysis, and we called it Big Audio Data Mine. There's over 1,000 studies in that data set. And some of those campaigns are mirrored in the Audiotrack database, which means we can do a merge or a fusion, which is a really exciting thing to do if you've got a job like mine. Now, guess what we found? Of all the things that Radio Gauge measures, we found out that creative standout suffers the most when audio ads have too many words. That's a regression plot, a scatter plot that you're looking at there. There are 22 campaigns on it, that's what all the dots are, and that's not a happy slope. That slope's going the wrong way. What it means is, as words per minute increase, campaign standout goes down. In fact, when you run the regression, it tells you this: 32% of the variance in an audio ad's creative standout score can be explained and predicted by its word rate. For every 10 extra words per minute you put into an ad, we can expect creative standout to fall by 1%. Which leads to another question. So what? Is that really important? Does creative standout really matter in audio advertising? Well, once again, Big Audio Data Mine comes to the rescue because it asks that question as well. And this is what we found. Creative standout has its strongest relationship with ad response in the form of web visits. And this is a happy chart because the slope's going in the right direction. And what it says is as creative standout scores increase for an ad, the number of web responses also increase. So creative standout drives web response, all right? So when you put all this together, in fact, here's just what the regression tells us: 61% of the variance in claimed website visits are predicted by an ad's standout score. Did you know that creative standout for audio was that important? For each 1% rise in creative standout, we can expect website visits to increase by 0.25%. Some of you, I know, will not be impressed by a 0.25% increase in anything, least of all your salary. So let's put this into a broader context. With all of this, I managed to build a model, okay, with all of this data, and you can plug some initial kind of variables or assumptions into it. So, of the 22 campaigns that we have this fusion on, they had an average total audience campaign reach in the UK of 33 million adults. So big national campaigns. And we plug that in, and what we can also do is put in an aspirational kind of word count. Let's put a low word count in. Now we put 147. This isn't a snooker tournament. This is really a number which is referring to the average number of words that we found for ads that had 0 terms and conditions. 147 words per minute, okay? We can also, from that, generate the average kind of campaign outcomes for campaigns that have 147 words per minute. And here you can see a creative standout score, a web response rate, and the number of campaign web referrals or web visits generated by a campaign that reaches 33 million people with a word rate of 147. You following me? Good, okay. Let's add in the fun bit now. Let's put, what we might call an excessive word count, 195. Now that isn't, again, another random number. That's the average word count for campaigns that had long terms and conditions, okay? And when you plug that in, what does the model give us? Well, it shows us that creative standout scores are degraded, here from 40% down to about 33%. Now, remember, when creative standout goes down, so does your web response rate. And this is what happens. Your web response rate goes from 1.8 to 1.3. And that means you don't get as many web visits. On a campaign as big as this, 33 million campaign reach, you go from 600,000 web visits all the way down to about 440. That's a fall of 160,000 web visits that never happened, or a 27% fall in ad response, because in a 30-second piece of copy, you put 24 extra words. Wow. How do we explain this? Well, let's have a think. Did you know that humans communicate verbally at 39 bits per second? Who knew that? Because you're fibbing if you do. All right? I got that after a search on the internet. It's a very interesting paper. This is the same across all languages, across all nations, okay? And given this is a European conference, this counts for everybody. Now, how fast or how slow is 39 bits per second? Anybody old enough to remember what this is? A dial-up modem. Do you remember how fast these things were? Well, they communicated at 14,400 bits per second. That puts our 39 bits per second into some kind of context, doesn't it? It's a really poor internet connection that we're using to talk. So, if this is the case, which it certainly is, there is clearly a natural limit on what humans can verbally take in and retain verbally. Filling audio ads with verbalized text information, I'll say that again, verbalized text information, swamps our ability to receive and remember brand messages. How many copywriters will be agreeing with me right now if you're in the room? Relying on verbalized text information is really like using a very bad internet connection to deliver brand effect. What do we mean? Well, there is another way. Audio channel 2, should we call it that, just for ease and convenience? It's all about symbolic memory and emotion. Audio conveys a second, non-linear channel of information, which is symbolic and emotional. And we humans are incredibly sensitive to variances in audible tonality, timbre, cadence, pitch, etc. In fact, our ears are as sensitive to these changes in sound as our eyes are to the expressions of emotion on people's faces. We read sound as accurately as we read faces, okay? So, to show you how this works, I'm going to do a very brief and simple experiment. It means I just need to do something. Okay? What did you hear? How long did it take? It took less than a second, very badly done, I'll grant you that. What you heard is all of that. All of that. The colour, the memories, the associations, the smells. You didn't need me to put that into a word for you to know which brand is talking, okay? That's audio channel 2 working for you right there. The information transmission capacity of audio channel 2, the emotional carrier wave, as I think about it, and the memory carrier wave is far denser. It's richer, more than anything that can be conveyed through verbalized text information alone. So, to summarise, low category involvement and poor creative standout are a challenge for lots of different brands in lots of different categories. We're in the financial district of London, if not Europe. Finance has definitely got a problem in this area. Understanding the impact of word density will really help us to de-risk audio campaigns. This is not an attack on terms and conditions. They are important, they're there for a reason, they are not going to go away. But we do need to be mindful of the impact that they can have on our creativity. But believe you me, there were a lot of campaigns in that data set I studied that were relying purely on text-based information for brand effect. We need to do better. Relying on this verbalized text information is a weak creative strategy in audio, and I hope my data helps to prove that. Lower word density helps brands leverage the emotional and the narrative strengths of audio, and that will drive creative standout, which in turn drives ad response and builds brand memories, because memory is what it's all about. So I'm going to hand back over to Anne now.
Thank you. So what Jason's shown today is the tip of a very large iceberg of insights. We're hoping to further delve into this Audiotrack database to see what more we can uncover, from impacts of tone of voice to calls to actions, on the effectiveness of audio advertising, whether linear or digital. So if this has sparked questions in your head that you'd like investigating in this area, do get in contact. Our details are up on screen. So thank you very much.